Hello, my name is Dwayne Johnson. I just watched Julia Galef's video on a rational view of tradition, and this is sort of my first time being introduced to her as well as her video blog. And I just wanted to propose maybe an addition to the complexity argument that she had, just to give a little bit of context. I was very traditionalist. I've become, I guess, much more liberal in my later years. Later being mid-age, and I still kind of hold on to tradition, but I also want to find new ways, and so I have the tension between both worlds, and I want to find the best possible scenario for me and my children to live in. But one of the arguments that I feel didn't perhaps get enough attention in the argument that Julia gave was sort of, maybe by analogy, ecological succession. If you think of traditions as kind of an ecosystem rather than simply an act or a recurring event, there's perhaps an analogy here where I don't know if you've heard of the Amazon canopy, where there's a lot of different kinds of vegetation that have grown up, and it has to happen in a certain order in order for the robust ecosystem to exist. So perhaps tree seeds, for example, will grow better under shrubs, and so the shrubs have to exist before the trees do. And there's a number of elements in that ecosystem that have to exist first before the next layer can be built, and the next, until you have this rich ecosystem full of tall trees and bushes and animals and everything that makes that possible. So if you use that as an analogy for tradition, you can also think about some of the difficulties that arise when you maybe uproot a tradition and you seek to replace it with something better. For example, many cultures created tradition around a shared experience. And I think of the Jews, for example, in Exodus, leaving Egypt. This sort of idea of a group shared experience is a rare event, and I would argue is something that has to happen prior to a tradition, a richer tradition, taking hold on an entire group. And so you could argue that perhaps a crisis is a part of an ecological succession, a precursor to tradition being strengthened in a group. And so I guess what I'm saying two things in this. One is, be careful when uprooting something. Replacing it may be much more difficult. Just because you see current complexity doesn't mean that you see all of the past complexity that grew into the current state. Also, I think what I'm saying is, it may be that serving your needs through some kind of almost transmutation or some kind of alteration of an existing tradition will serve your purposes much better than considering it all bunk or rejecting it outright and trying something new. I think that this has happened in all of our systems. I mean, all of our traditions have had some kind of rider effect, where we've ridden on we've used some existing tradition and built on top of it. Christianity, took the natural pagan traditions and used them as a vehicle to its own ends. Easter is almost all bunnies and eggs now, and yet somehow we also bring in the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And there's a lot of different things that have been built on top of one another. So I think that we as rationalists can accomplish the same thing, and are accomplishing the same thing, without thinking of traditions as something that necessarily needs to be undone. Thanks.